If you have a low tolerance for misalignment, that's an awesome way to be. It is, because you have a bias toward action and making things better. But my God, is it difficult? Is it painful? Is it maddening when you are in the throes of some sort of misalignment, whether it's relational, professional? Absolutely. So in this video, we're going to explore why even the smartest, most capable, self-aware people who've been in therapy and have been doing the work find themselves in seasons of deep misalignment in work and relationships. And then I'm happy to share with you all a 3-part evidence-based transformational system to get out. Get out! Like the movie by Jordan Peele. Get out! Okay, if you're new around these parts, first, welcome. My name is Percy. I am a transformative coach and also a former corporate ladder climber. And I have toured as a musician in my past life. So I am a multidisciplinary human and I don't shy away from that. Before we get into why we find ourselves in seasons of misalignment and how maddening it is, I will say I have been there many times. I have climbed corporate ladders and gotten to a point where I'm like, this job is making me unwell. I need to get into alignment. I have been in relationships that looked good to the outside world. Oh, y'all look good together. Oh, that seems like a catch of a person. And oh my gosh, was it horrible. I have been the recovering codependent who's had to learn how to stand on his own and not use people as his medicine rather than facing his own demons and his own unwellness and the parts of himself that need to heal, right? And so I know the price of misalignment, and I have had to spend a whole bunch of money, over $100,000, in the past decade being a student of this work and then getting to facilitate transformation for a whole bunch of clients. So let's get into it. Why do we find ourselves in these chapters of such deep misalignment despite our best effort to create better for ourselves? Perhaps you have done all the therapy or you've listened to all the content and you know what to do to make things better. Or perhaps you've tried the psychedelics, right? On some level, things still aren't shifting. You keep reaching the outer limits of your current capacity and your way of doing things. I hear it a lot. That's how I know it. And you might be nodding as you're hearing this. So there are 2 primary reasons we find ourselves in these seasons of deep misalignment. One is that we aren't taught self-awareness. In this Western world especially, we are taught compliance. Think about it. From a young age, in our school system, we are reared up to be world-class at following rules, which makes us morph into big adults who are great at doing things the way we should do them, but not so great at doing things in a way that works for us. Big adults who are decent at doing what's required of us, not so great at knowing what we need to thrive on our terms. And so around these parts, what I say often on the podcast as well, is that I'm not a fan really of self-development. I'm more a fan of self-understanding. While self-development can be a tool to really shame ourselves, self-understanding can be a tool that we leverage to love ourselves and to implement what we know about ourselves, right? So how does this show up? Well, I'll tell you. I have a story that's close to home. Back when I found myself doing my first wave of time in the corporate world, my body told me I was out of alignment before my mind caught up with it. How did that happen? I was working this job at a very well-respected tech company that was on all of the most impressive list of high-growing startups, and it couldn't have been less aligned. For starters, we were making this technology for police, and it was around the time when a lot of black and brown men are getting shot down by cops in the US. And I'm out in the field implementing this software, doing project management and tech sales. And again, it looks impressive to the outside, and it's the sort of job where you stick around long enough and you're going to have equity and all the perks that come with being at this rocket ship of a company. But on some level, I just knew, whoa, I am way off base for me. And even though I knew that, I didn't honor that knowing. Life speaks to us in whispers, right? And then in screams. Perhaps you find yourself at a point where life has spoken to you in a whisper, and now it's mounting into a scream. Well, that's what happened to me. I'll never forget there was one day where I woke up with a crippling stomach pain and I got real scared. I got very scared, very worried. And I ended up going to the GI doctor in Boston. I know it sounds like TMI. I'm not going to give you too much detail. And I was okay, thank God. But I realized that was work-related stress. Our bodies will somaticize, aka express through symptoms of unwellness, autoimmune disease, inflammation, will express what we have tried to emotionally repress. And so in this compliance-based culture, we aren't taught self-understanding. We aren't taught how to do things in a way that works for us. And so rather than choosing what looked like that sexy and impressive, high-stress, way out of alignment job, part of my life's work in that chapter was to figure out what it looked like to get into alignment for me, which set me on a path to working in media and writing speeches for really famous people and building brands for really well-known people, and then starting to build my own brand and my own coaching practice and getting to support leaders through big life transitions on the heels of that. So that's part of my journey from compliance to self-understanding. And I'm curious, what does that look like for you? What is your journey trying to ask of you as you step from the way of compliance to the way of self-understanding, which is to go from doing the thing that might be more socially rewarded in your career or your relationships to doing the thing that uniquely suits you. So that's the work we get to do around these parts. That's part one of why we find ourselves in these chapters of misalignment. The other part is we aren't taught how to address issues at their root. We're often taught to manage symptoms. It's evidenced in our medical system, where often Big Pharma wants to give people drugs for things that wouldn't require drugs if our doctors and all the marketers and advertisers were on board with advocating for lifestyle change. That we even see it in the content creator space, where it's easier to just keep people on a hamster wheel of consume more content, take more psychedelics, get more relationship advice, rather than let's address the root issue that sits at the base of all this. Let's address the root issue that is affecting the way you relate with money in this very scarcity-based frame. Let's address the root issue of the way intimacy is so scary for you because of your mother or father wound, right? Let's address the root issue of the way you struggle with trusting others because you never learned self-trust. So there's a world's difference between managing symptoms and addressing issues at the root. And almost none of us were really raised, unless you were lucky to be raised in a very new age avant-garde family. Very few of us were raised learning how to address issues at the root. And so I wonder for you, how does that show up, right? How does it show up as you find yourself at some sort of crossroads? You're listening to this, thumbs up, where something's out of alignment. Could that be as a result of continuing to spin the block managing symptoms rather than having the tools to get to the root of an issue? To paraphrase the words of the iconic and legendary Desmond Tutu, there comes a point where we can either keep rescuing people who are drowning in the river, or we can go upstream, go uphill, and figure out who in the world is throwing them in. And is that not a beautiful metaphor for what it looks like to go from managing the symptoms of the problem, the symptoms of whatever has you stuck, the symptoms of whatever has you stepping into unhealthy relationships, the symptoms of whatever has you not honoring yourself in your business or your career, the symptoms of whatever has you operating with dysfunctional systems in your work, to saying, hey, no more symptom management. Let's get to the root of this issue. So what does it look like to really start to get to the root of this issue? Well, drum roll. I wish I had drums. I would so do the drum roll right now if I had drums. It looks like facilitating transformation. And there's a 3-part system that's backed by neuroscience, psychology, and common sense. And it's something that I've integrated and implemented through hundreds and hundreds of coaching hours with clients. And so transformation happens on 3 planes: at the head level, at the heart level, and at the nervous system level. These things work in concert, and they can stand alone, as we will come to understand them. So what all does this mean? So at the head level, transformation, and again, what is transformation? Transformation is not just change. Transformation is caterpillar to butterfly. Transformation is doing a full 180. Transformation is to change form. And that's what's required on the heels of realizing that this familiar hell you're living in is not honoring the unfamiliar heaven you're looking to step into. And what does that look like for you? You get to decide. You get to write that down as you're listening to this. You get to reflect on what is feeling out of alignment for you and where are you feeling drawn to step into alignment. So again, the 3 prongs of transformation here. At the head level, transformation looks like understanding what stories am I believing as truth? What stories am I living into? And are they serving me? Are they aligned with what I want to create for myself? Or nah, right? The head also represents logic because we have our right brain, which is more creative, and our left brain, which is more logical. And so the head also represents things like our systems and structures that we build out and uphold to be effective. It's been said that your outputs are really a product of your inputs. As an example, I'm a marketer, so I know that if my output is crappy, meaning that I'm not getting the result I want in my business, it's time for me to look at my system and my inputs. So transformative work at the head level has to do with the stories we're telling ourselves, as well as understanding what systems we have in play or need in order to be effective. And it helps to have a coach or a space to shine light on what you're not seeing as you consider what does transformation look like for me at the head level. That's only one level. This is good. It gets better. So then there's transformation at the heart level. And oh my gosh, this is a really cool space and place because the heart represents emotions. And this is backed by research and science, which shows that there's such a thing as broken heart syndrome. It's called Takotsubo cardiomyopathy. Forgive me if I mispronounced that. So we can literally manifest symptoms that look like a heart attack when we have a broken heart. That is the extent to which our heart represents our emotions. And so often when we are, again, at the city limits of how we've been doing things and realize that we're calling in some long overdue transformation, to have the healthy relationships, to finally receive love, to finally be in healthy partnership with who we are with, to finally have alignment in our work, to finally step into that next caliber of leadership, right? Whatever that looks like for you in this season of transition, what holds us back at the heart level is unwillingness to feel certain emotions, to feel certain feelings that would allow us to be free. And on the other side of sitting with and dealing with that fear of rejection, on the other side of finally naming the disappointment or the despair or the rejection sensitivity, on the other side of naming that feeling and cultivating the emotional capacity to realize you can hold it and process it, there is freedom and there's transformation at the heart level. So the heart represents also emotional capacity. And that's not fixed. We get to expand it, and it helps to have a space to dedicate to doing the work to expand your emotional capacity. And then the third level is nervous system. And what does nervous system represent? Nervous system represents safety. It represents our ability to experience pleasure, and not just from erotic things and extreme things like sex, drugs, rock and roll. No, it's our presence while engaging with the mundane. It's our ability to feel a sense of safety. And what I've learned in this work I do and what I've learned in my own healing journey is that so many of us spend so much of our time highly dysregulated at the nervous system level. I can't tell you the number of high achievers I meet who are always on the go, always busy, and it's because they are in a low-grade flight response all the time. I've talked about this in podcasts. You can check that out. But there's fight, flight, freeze, fawn. Those are some of the primary stress responses. And then obviously there's the grounded state, which is our goal. That's where we want to be. But so many people are unknowingly in a dysregulated state in their nervous system and wonder why it's so hard to experience peace. Wonder why it's so hard to feel a sense of safety and security even when good things come. Wonder why it's hard to step into, again, that unfamiliar heaven of healthy love, of a job where you're paid more, of creative entrepreneurship, of a new level of leadership, you name it. We can really only ascend to the level that our nervous system is calibrated to feel safe and grounded. And back again to this whole compliance-based system that we were brought up in. As we mentioned earlier, very few of us were taught the tools to ground our nervous system and understand which state our nervous system is in and realize that we have the power to get our nervous system in the state we want it to be in to be effective. Transformation happens at the head level, the heart level, and the nervous system level. And I would love to invite you to consider what comes up for you as you hear all of this. What comes up for you as you hear all of this? This is a sort of work that is iterative and it's ongoing. And I'm not one of those gurus. I'm not a guru. I'm not one of those self-help bros. Not one of those. I'm not one of those people who's like, there's just a magic pill and you snap your finger and you work 2 hours a day. Anyone who's pushing that to you is lying. It's not a magic pill. You just snap your finger and all of a sudden it's easy breezy beautiful. What I can promise you is that doing this work in a structured way works. And doing this work with the right support and the right input to not just receive more information, but the right insight and the accountability to stick with the right implementation that works for you, doing just that will change your life, will blow up your career in the best way, will blow up your relationships in the best way, meaning make them better, right? Not make them worse. And so if any of this resonates with you and you realize you are in some sort of misalignment trap and you're ready to give final notice to that, where you're like, I'm good on this. I'm ready for something new. I'm ready for something different, whether it's because you're on the heels of a relationship shift or job shift, or if you realize you're done with doing things the way you've done them and it's time and long overdue to make some necessary changes out of love for yourself and out of love for everyone connected to you. Explore if it's a fit for you to apply for the program, the coaching program down below. I take on a limited number of people each month, and so you can take the next step down below, and I look forward to connecting with you.